This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Hope you had a happy holiday. Last time we talked to you was last Monday. We were hoping for more bursts of Yankees news. What we got was Gleyber Torres finding a new home and the Yankees being interested in a reunion with Tim Hill, someone we knew they were interested in a reunion with. Checks notes the day after the season ended, and yet we're still waiting on that. It's a pretty complete team, not completely complete though. The Yankees still have to fill Gleyber Torres' hole, whether you think this was addition by subtraction or not. That may be true, but if the subtraction leads to DJ LeMahieu starting on opening day, then I would argue that no, that was not the case. But Gleyber's departure was inevitable, and based on his comments, it seems that the Yankees did not even try to retain him at the relatively cheap price for which he ultimately settled. I am okay with that. You may not be. We encourage you to sound off in the comments. Depending on how you feel, we would love to address it on the show. Thanks for joining us Mondays and Thursdays, 2 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be back again January 2nd into the new year. This is our final show of 2024. Looking forward into 2025, seeing if we've got any targets that we'd like the Yankees to explore heading into the new year. Fact remains they need either a second or third baseman. As Ruben Sierra tweeted today, the Yankees need a bat, and yeah, they sure do. But will they get a bat or will they just get a glove? Thomas Carannante, thank you for joining me. Gleyber Torres, did he win the Yankees more games with his bat or lose them more games with his glove and base running last year? Your thoughts?
You know my thoughts. Very glad that this relationship is over. I wish Gleyber the best. It was not going to work out with the Yankees. All the teenage fans are very upset because Gleyber Torres was, for some reason, their messiah. I still don't understand why. League average bat last year, even with that incredible turnaround at the end of the season. Like, these are the players the Yankees need to avoid. The monster hot and cold streaks, and the cold streaks end up being way more detrimental than the hot streaks, especially for someone like Torres, who only hit 15 home runs last year. And yes, 26 doubles, but struck out a ton.
And hit a huge World Series home run, which is the highlight that gets floated, in all the goodbye montages. But which was a more impactful World Series moment? The home run up 7-4 to put the Yankees up 10-4, down 3-0 in the series, or the relay throw he mishandled in game one that led directly to a run reaching scoring position. Yeah. That run ultimately scored in a game that went to extra innings, and the Yankees lost on a 2-out Freddie Freeman grand slam that never would have happened if they'd managed to keep that runner off the plate during regulation. So the Gleyber Torres experience summed up in the World Series to me, and also summed up in the reaction to his departure when we're seeing that World Series home run and we're seeing highlights from 2018 and 2019, the Orioles home runs, the walk-off against Cleveland, the Michael Kay call, a child shall lead them or whatever. Gleyber had his highs. He absolutely did. And you can withstand the defense if he's an above league average bat, but when he's not, it's really hard to. And it's telling that the moments we saw were, let's face it, a garbage time home run in the World Series and several important moments from 2018 when he was a rookie with boundless energy and potential, and 2019 when the ball was juiced.
Yep. I mean, you pretty much said it for me. So thanks. I didn't have to be the jerk here.
I'm sorry if anybody thought that we were going to have like dueling, like I miss Gleyber, I don't miss Gleyber takes. I wish him well like you did, and I don't mean that in a hollow way. I hope
I don't either.
I hope he has a great year in Detroit. I hope he grows out the beard. I hope he honestly, I was excited for him at the end of the year as he started building his case for next year, because it felt like, okay, lead off Gleyber, they've tapped into something, and you're not noticing the detrimental defense as much as his offense is going off. And, maybe he can get himself a 2-year deal now, and he can avoid that, or a 3-year deal, but probably more like 2 with an option. And he can avoid that pressure that comes with playing in a contract year and all of the things that led him to struggle so much last season and so much around the 2022 trade deadline, when he was a guy who was in trade rumors and all of a sudden could not hit anymore. And admitted that he was off social media because he didn't want to hear about the rumors gaining traction and didn't want to read fans trying to ship him to a new location. So we know that uncertainty and being unmoored can cause trouble for Torres. And He wanted to be a Yankee, and the Yankees didn't have him in their plans, and that led to uncertainty last year until something clicked in the leadoff spot. Don't know what it was, but great. I was hoping he'd sign a 2-year deal to avoid 2025 being this pressure-filled hole for him, and now he's just on a 1-year deal in Detroit, and it feels like an inevitable situation where he's going to be working too hard to earn multi-year security next offseason, and hopefully it doesn't manifest itself in the same way it did this year.
I agree. Look, I don't mean it in a hollow manner either. I think Gleyber Torres is a talented and good baseball player. I just don't think he's disciplined, and I don't think his head's in the right space, and that is not those are qualities that cannot loom large in a market like New York and on a team where there's just little room for error. It's not fair when you come to the Yankees, right? The expectations are ratcheted up way more than you'd ever imagine, and you could find yourself searching for an aspect of your game that perhaps doesn't exist in order to satiate those needs. But Gleyber Torres had been here for a while, and everything had only gotten worse. And I think that everybody who is a little bit nostalgic about his departure at this point is just living in the past. And I don't mean that harshly, because 2018 and 2019 were awesome. That was fun. We thought he was a cornerstone piece. We thought the Aroldis Chapman trade was beyond genius. We couldn't believe that this young assortment of Yankees players was going to make up the next great Yankees team, and it just didn't. He got worse from 2020 to 2024 to varying degrees. The concerns with his game did not improve whatsoever in terms of the defense, in terms of the mental lapses, in terms of the base running mistakes, in terms of the drama with the media and the organization. The reality is that you're going to get dangled in trade rumors sometimes. If you can't handle that in a big market, then you can't be in the big market. It's just kind of the way it is. And I think this says it all. Look, the Yankees tried to trade him multiple times since 2020, and they failed. They failed for probably obvious reasons, one of which is Brian Cashman probably being as stingy as he possibly can on the trade market, and teams not kind of leaning into that or wanting to help him out. And two was that realistically, teams saw the holes in his game. They didn't want to overpay, and they didn't care enough to pursue him as an asset. So the fact that he left and signed a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Detroit Tigers, to me, just says it all. The Yankees were done, and there was no changing that. Gleyber Torres' comments after the signing: Yankees never reached out with an offer. There was limited communication. You signed less for the look. There were concerns at the end of this year. Remember, we had them. We're like, do they offer him the qualifying offer? Is he going to accept that? Do we want him to accept that? I'm not sure. He ends up signing $6 million less than the qualifying offer, and the Yankees didn't even bite. And they probably had an idea that other teams were looking at him for a cheaper rate at that point. And they said, no, I'm not interested. I'd rather continue through the rest of this offseason with an imperfect solution, whether it's Jazz Chisholm at third base and one of, Oswald Peraza, Oswaldo Cabrera filling in at second, or Jazz Chisholm at second base and doing some sort of platoon with Peraza, Cabrera, and LeMahieu at third, or looking for another option. Again, I don't know what that's going to be, because we're now later in the offseason, and I'm not sure there are different trade candidates who have been floated on the market, or if there's any interest in the remaining free agent options. And I don't think they would be better than what the Yankees have at this point. But to me, the way that this ended unceremoniously, again, like, what do you remember about Gleyber Torres? I might have been too harsh on him, I will admit, but I remember many more of his mistakes than I do of his successes, because his successes really did not drive this team to the next level. As you've seen, he had a very good year. Everybody was talking about, 2022 and 2023. Oh, Gleyber Torres is back. What did those years do? He accumulated a 4 WAR in 2022, and he was non-existent from August and September because of the trade rumors. So he contributed to the team's first half surge, and then was literally nearly part of a 15.5 game collapse at the end of that year. 2023, 2.9 WAR. Really good year. Team was irrelevant. Team was terrible. Production didn't matter. Nothing mattered. So, I mean, if you want to remember Gleyber Torres fondly, I think you have the right to do so. But there needs to be a proper context here. And what he has done since, if you want to just look at since he was a .8 WAR player across 2021 and 2020. That was 170 something games, and you could have inserted almost anybody else there, and it would have been just as good or potentially better. Then he recovered, and then what did he do in his contract year? He was awful for 4 months in almost every way imaginable. Non-existent offense, poor defense when you needed it, or not tight defense, and the lapses got larger in the bigger moments, and then the base running mistakes. Like, it's just, it wasn't acceptable anymore. And at this rate, the Yankees didn't need to pay that high of a price or really anything. It's funny because this is only an $800,000 raise off of what Gleyber Torres made this past season, his $50 million contract with the Tigers. So he barely got a pay bump. If the Yankees can save $10 to $15 million by, I think Oswaldo Cabrera is a better baseball player, and maybe people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But you want to talk switch hitter, good energy, really reliable defense, versatile infielder. Like, that's more valuable to me at this point than like trying to summoning the ghost of 2018, 2019 Gleyber Torres. So again, wish him well. I hope the different environment, he said the Tigers environment feels more like a family. I don't know if that's a shot at the Yankees or not. Maybe it is, who knows? But if that's a better environment for him, then great. I hope he succeeds. I hope the upstart Tigers do well next year. They're gunning for the AL Central. I think it's totally possible. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if the Tigers marquee addition is Gleyber Torres, and then they shift other guys out of the picture, I think Detroit fans are going to be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I think if Detroit adds Alex Bregman now, which apparently is a focus of theirs, and Colt Keith is going to play first base, then that's a great infield. And it's an infield that, in a parallel universe, you could have seen in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
But if Gleyber Torres is the end of it, and Alex Cobb is also making $15, and that's the end of what Detroit does this offseason. $15, and they hand the keys to Jace Young at third base, coming off wrist surgery. Like, the Torres move I like, because the Tigers aren't just basking in their glory of last year's surprise run and being like, oof, good. Now we can just hand the keys to a bunch of rookies and not pay anybody. And we have enough goodwill that we can do that. No, they proactively went out there and got Gleyber Torres, who's a playoff tested veteran. And I think in 2018-19, we were really hoping that Torres stepping up in the playoffs was more of a real thing than a, small sample size thing. And it turned out to sort of normalize in 21 and 22 and 23, where they didn't make the playoffs in 24. He was great in the ALCS, fine in the DS, and bad in the World Series. So it's sort of up and down. He can do it. He doesn't do it all the time. He's not like some, playoff ace in the hole. He's not Big Poppy, but, he keeps that heartbeat where it needs to be. He can perform in October. If they get that and add Bregman, I love it. If they just end with Torres or they're talking about Anthony Santander, they're talking about Ha-Seong Kim, who's their supposed plan C, might be our plan B right about now. And, if they just add Kim, I don't know if I like that as much. If they can get Bregman or Santander, that's a big step up. So yeah, we'll see. Best of luck in Detroit. And here's the issue though, because the Yankees need to replace Gleyber. They knew they needed to replace Gleyber, and they knew that the bar would be pretty low for a Gleyber replacement based on last year's roughly average offensive production, late surge not included, and tough to watch defense. But they've still got everybody worrying about, and Jay Snow in the comments right here, I'd rather Gleyber back than watch DJ. DJ is shot, and they're going to trot them out there again.
I agree.
I mean, if DJ LeMahieu is what's next, then yeah, this was a mistake and they should have paid Gleyber Torres $15 million. I'm going to give Brian Cashman and company the benefit of the doubt for now, because it's December 30th, and because I have to, and because I can't reach the place. Some of you out there think differently, and that's fine. I can't get to the place where it's December 30th and I'm like, I believe what the Yankees are saying at face value, and DJ LeMahieu who's going to start on opening day, or be given a chance to start on opening day, or be a major part of the third and second base mix come April. I can't believe that, because I saw it. Cooked doesn't even begin to describe the way he performed last year. Eating the money and sending him elsewhere would be the gesture of goodwill that I would accept from the Yankees right now. Even carrying him on the bench is not conducive to winning at this point. I think that they will, but I don't see a world in which he's penciled in as a starter.
No.
And I don't even think that's worth worrying about right now. And I understand why people are, because he's still here and Gleyber Torres is not. But right now, with a month and a half to go before spring training, I don't think that's valid. I think I will validate your anxieties by saying I get where you're coming from, and I feel you on that, and that would be unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's valid to say because Gleyber Torres is gone and because the Yankees have not already made a splurge for an infielder that DJ LeMahieu is inevitable or that Oswaldo Cabrera is inevitable. Joel Sherman put out, we're talking plan Bs. There is a comment in here asking if the Yankees could swing a deal for Luis Rengifo, who is kind of like Gleyber. I mean, hit 300 last year, 116 OPS plus, but kind of a butcher in the field, negative in all these defensive negative or break even in all these defensive stats. So will the Yankees be willing to stomach that? They already stomached it with Gleyber, and Rengifo doesn't have the power of Gleyber. So I don't know. It depends if he comes at a steep discount. We know the Yankees were interested last trade deadline. That same comment asked if they could jump into the Ha-Seong Kim market. I don't know anything about Ha-Seong Kim, not Ha-Seong Kim, the current Korean League player who's coming over, and apparently the Mariners are in his final group. I mean, good glove. I don't think the bat could, from what I know, good glove, but there's no reason to believe there's offensive upside there that could match the top of Gleyber Torres' peak. So that doesn't necessarily do it for me either. If I'm thinking about signing a quality glove utility guy, Oswaldo Cabrera can do that. I don't know if he can start, and I know DJ LeMahieu can't, but I think Oswaldo Cabrera can do that. Joel Sherman with some interesting comments today about the Yankees' Nolan Arenado chase, or lack thereof, because it doesn't seem like that exists. And Jack Curry tossed a bunch of cold water on it last week around Christmas time in the Yankees hot stove. Everybody was gathered around the hot stove, toasting their marshmallows and hanging their stockings and listening to Jack Curry say the Yankees don't even know Nolan Arenado's name. And I don't think that Nolan Arenado is the difference maker that this roster needs. But again, the closer and closer we get to spring training and opening day, the more and more, pervasive thoughts, intrusive thoughts of DJ LeMahieu start to creep in. I hear you. And Nolan Arenado, yes, an improvement on DJ LeMahieu. Gleyber Torres, yes, an improvement on DJ LeMahieu. But Nolan Arenado's back problems, his value is based almost entirely on his glove, and he doesn't make any sense for Yankee Stadium, and he'd be a 3-year commitment, which is not a 7-year commitment, but it's money for 3 years that can't be used on other better fits. Not for me. As we get closer and closer and the well gets drier and drier, we may have to accept that the solution may be unpalatable. But right now, I don't have to accept that. Ha-Seong Kim, great glove. Out till April, end of April, shoulder surgery, barely above average hitter. His value is his glove. And I'm all for the Yankees tightening up their defense. The perfect player is someone who can elevate above Torres' defense, but also provide at least equivalent offensive output. I don't think that guy exists. And so Ha-Seong Kim at least provides one of the two things. You're going to lose offense, you're going to gain defense. But which do you value more? For this Yankees team, I want to raise the offensive ceiling of every position. I want someone who I know can step in and be above average. I don't know how far above average, but above average. So not my first choice. Would plug one hole admirably, but not my first choice. I'm about to publish something on this site about this, but I know they're not getting Alex Bregman. I know it's not going to happen. I know they value these draft picks. They would lose 2 if they signed Bregman. They lost 2 when they signed Max Fried. They only got 1 back for Juan Soto, and they'd be losing that Juan Soto pick if they signed Bregman. So ultimately, 1 in, 4 out. It's less than ideal. But the Corbin Burnes deal did get me thinking about. Joel Sherman said today the Yankees love Bregman, the player, and love his fit for this particular roster. Gold Glove at third, potentially regressing bat, but hasn't regressed yet. It's there probably this year, next year, the year after. You're getting a really good version of Alex Bregman. Less than perfect stadium fit, and the Yankees know that, but 81 games on the road, playoff tested, playoff road game tested. I'll take Alex Bregman. I don't want him for 7 years. They don't want him for 7 years. Does the Corbin Burnes deal not make sense here? A 6-year, not quite that high AAV, right? We're not going $35 million, but $28 million and an opt out after year 2, and he keeps doing what it feels like he should be doing, like I think Alex Bregman will have 2 more good years, and I think he'll utilize that opt out, and I think someone else will give him a 3 or 4 year deal with a high AAV. I think he'd make a lot of money. I think he'd make endorsement money in New York. I think he's exactly what this roster needs, not for 7 years, but for the 2. So I don't know why you wouldn't do a Corbin Burnes deal there. I don't know why Bregman wouldn't. I don't think either party will. But, you know, when we're talking draft picks, we don't like starting rookies when they get here, right? Offensively, everybody wants to talk about you have to build up your farm system so that you can offer better packages and trades. There are a lot of benefits, but the Yankees draft these guys high, and they have George Lombard and Roderick Arias and Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez, and no one is comfortable with elevating these guys to the major league roster. They're always looking for Ben Rice was sitting there, and we were never like, well, it's Ben Rice's time to shine. We're like, let's get Christian Walker, or let's get Paul Goldschmidt, or let's get Carlos Santana. When the rookies are ready, we don't want to start the rookies because we're like, we could always do better. A rookie could be anything, but this guy is this guy, right? So, you know, you want to build up your position player database for trade purposes and for depth and insurance. But once these guys are big league ready, we're uncomfortable starting them at the big league level. Our specialty is minor league pitching. We just reloaded on that in the draft last year. Our specialty is international signings. We just reloaded there, and we have a bunch of money earmarked for other talented players on the outside, right? We've got the top shortstop in the 2026 class. We're about to pay him as well. So is the farm system really in that dire shape that we need these 3 draft picks more than we need Alex Bregman? I don't think so, but the Yankees feel differently. And again, you have to find a way to cut off the back half of that deal with an opt-out. If you're going to do it, I think it would make a lot of sense for both parties. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not, and honestly, it shouldn't, because the Yankees are just going to be creating the same problems that they've dealt with for a while. And I understand that they can afford those problems, but it's now reached a point where they need to not keep making these investments. And they kind of made one with Fried, which nobody was really against, an 8-year deal, which everybody looked at and was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. And in our minds, it made sense because it got him to not go to the Red Sox, and they can afford to pay for a few regression years at that price. For Alex Bregman, it's different with pitchers, right? For someone who's going to be on the field every day, for someone you're relying on for Gold Glove defense, or someone you're relying on for 25 doubles, 25 homers, or whatever, that production falls off very steeply. For pitchers, the drop off usually isn't that drastic. So we've seen it with these position players that the Yankees have gotten stuck with, like even Giancarlo Stanton. Yes, Giancarlo Stanton, postseason legend, largely does what he needs to when called upon, but he is not a regular season contributor. He's not. So you're paying $25+ million a year to hope that you get to October so Giancarlo Stanton can help you out. DJ LeMahieu, another one. Josh Donaldson I know that wasn't a long-term deal, but it was a 2-year deal that paid him $26 million. And
it really, truly sucked.
And it sucked, and it screwed the Yankees out of getting other talent. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain if we get Alex Bregman. It's just I don't think it's the right move, and I don't think it's smart for the Yankees to hamstring themselves further, because there is going to be this discussion with the tax every year. I know the CBA's up after this year or the year after, either one. But until we see big changes there in terms of the competitive balance tax and the redistribution of the wealth and all that across the league, they can't keep putting themselves in this position, because then you get into the Cohen tax threshold and you're paying you're paying another dollar for every dollar spent over the number, and it doesn't make any financial sense. The other side of the coin is it's also difficult. There are no trade candidates out there. You look through all the depth charts for second baseman and third baseman, and there's really not that many appealing ones, or ones that you would think teams would move on from. And then you look at the Yankees farm system, and they don't have much to offer. So it gets harder and harder to acquire these players, which is why Arenado, I think, has emerged as someone who people have been willing to, I guess, acquiesce to, because he's not going to cost much in a trade, because the Cardinals want to get rid of that money. And then it's essentially like $16 million a year for 3 years, which is just not bad. Like, that's what you're paying DJ LeMahieu. Nolan Arenado is so much better than DJ LeMahieu at this point that you can't even compare the impact of the two. So I understand why people are trying to reason with Nolan Arenado, because the defense is really good. It's probably going to be good for 2 more years, which is really what you need it for. Still hitting 260, 270, which is, I mean, worlds better than so much of we have seen with this offense over the last few years in terms of like lengthening lineup production. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, it's just not easy. And again, the argument it goes back to, don't need all-stars and former MVPs at every position. Just try to get better. And this is the first offseason in a while where it seemed like the Yankees have been trying to get better meaningfully at a number of spots, as opposed to just being like, oh, well, we imported more talent and I guess we'll figure the rest out later. Like last year, Juan Soto was the crown jewel, and that was that. Oh, we got Juan Soto, so what else do we need to do? Well,
yeah, we're not going to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
We're not going to do the other stuff.
We need to do a lot of other things, because Juan Soto is an amazing baseball player, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest ever, but it's not enough, and you're displacing one of your best defensive players to accommodate him, and you're creating this jigsaw puzzle that doesn't really make sense. So this year you have Bellinger into the fold, you add Goldschmidt, you hopefully move Jazz Chisholm back to second base where he's more comfortable, and you get a better defender at third base. You move Aaron Judge back to right field. That helps out the outfield big time. You give Jason Dominguez more playing time. You improve the bullpen. You improve the starting rotation. So there's more depth here. There's more defensive certainty. And I was on board with improving the offense, and I still am, obviously. Like, the offense needs to improve. But I think if we're looking at a situation where you could just get a really good defender at third base, and you can get Jazz Chisholm more comfortable, and you get Aaron Judge more comfortable, and you get Cody Bellinger comfortable in his new setting, like, everything's kind of going to fall into place. Obviously, you're not replacing Juan Soto. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point, but if you don't lose those games that you lost because of Clay Holmes blowing 15 saves, or because of Gleyber Torres rounding third like a dope, or somebody at third base olaying a ball that goes into left field, like, it makes a big difference. And again, saw in the 5th inning of the World Series what that does to you. Saw in Game 1 of the World Series what that does to you. So you tighten up and you save yourselves 10 games a year. I think that kind of offsets the need for another wildly impactful offensive player. I could be wrong, but just based on how many lapses we've seen and the amount of times that this team has shot themselves in the foot, if that is cut in half, which is really not that much to ask for, because there was 20 plus games last year where you were just like, what is going on? You're talking about a better team in general, and then you're talking about a team that's a lot more prepared for the postseason when they get to the CS and the World Series, which is the most important.
Agreed. Seeing some strange comments about how DJ LeMahieu is a cancer and thinks he can still play and should be playing, which is affecting the locker room. I mean, look, that's a $15 million sunk cost. They're not getting.
It's the Yankees' fault.
They're not. It's the Yankees' fault that he's here, but I also see no evidence that he's negatively impacting the locker room. And every time you see Aaron Judge speak out, it's on his behalf, not against him. So I don't think he's of much value to this team, but I don't think that if the choice is between eating $15 million and sending him out onto the market, or swallowing the $15 million, keeping him here and keeping him in that locker room, I don't think he's causing trouble. If he is, then they'll get rid of him. But I see no evidence to that fact. I'm not in love with any of the options.
No, it's hard.
That's really all there is to say about it. And I'm looking at the Twins because, like, that's a team looking to save money, thinking about swinging big. I don't think Carlos Correa is available. Royce Lewis, I don't think is available either, but that's a super prospect who took a step back last year, battled injuries, only had a 107 OPS plus after emerging in 2023 as both remarkably consistent and remarkably clutch. It's a player I've loved. Don't love him so much last year. He's controlled through 2028. You're going to be paying a heavy price. You're going to be paying Spencer Jones, but that's a bat with a ceiling unlike any other player I've seen on the market this offseason. I don't know if he's on the market, but if he is, you should call around. And worst case, you shoot for the Royce Lewis as you land among the Willie Castros. And like you said, not an all-star at every position, even though Willie Castro weirdly was an all-star last year. roughly league average bat, 105 and 102 OPS plus the last couple of years. Had that bizarre play against the Yankees where he caught a fly ball in center field, just ran into the infield, didn't do anything with it. But if he plays second base, I mean, it's versatility. I prize versatility. I prize consistency. I just want the bat to be above average. If we can reach that 110 floor everywhere. I like the Yankees offseason. There were some comments here about, what if Stanton struggles, I think we're in trouble. If Goldschmidt struggles, I think you have to assume that Stanton's going to go down.
You should not be projecting anything out of Giancarlo Stanton for the regular season.
You just want him here in October, but I don't think there's a world where he plays more than 120 games next year. And I think you just have to accept that, and you have to get to October, and then you have to hope he's available.
Yeah, that's the luxury that the Yankees can afford. You look at Giancarlo Stanton's last few regular seasons, it's 110 games, 101 games, 114 games. Before that, he had 139, and it felt like he played 162. He still missed 20-something games. 2020, he couldn't even play the full shortened season. 2019, he played in 18. So, this is not a regular season player that's helping you. I understand he still belts 25-plus home runs a year, but, again, one of those players where the cold streaks are really bad, and they hold this team back, and the hot streaks are fun, and they definitely translate to wins, but the silence on offense is beyond detrimental. And it's not something the team can afford. The good news is that you have guys like Goldschmidt, you have guys like Bellinger, and you have some flexibility off the bench. Some of those guys can DH. You get Aaron Judge off his feet for a day here and there. There's flexibility if Giancarlo Stanton goes down or just needs a breather because he's gone cold. But yeah, I mean, you can't expect much out of Giancarlo during the regular season. It's been literally our lives outside of 2018 and 2021. It's the rest of his entire tenure. But yeah, I mean, look, they moved with a purpose this offseason. They've tried to improve. They gotten guys with hardware in the door, which I think is valuable. Worst case scenario, I think DJ LeMahieu is a utility player off the bench who plays in 100 games. And do I want that? Not necessarily, because I don't really have confidence in him to turn it around. He's been nothing but injured for 4 years. His timeline of inconsistencies and irrelevancies have aligned with what Gleyber Torres has done. If one of those guys is halfway competent and not detrimental in the worst way imaginable, we could be having a different conversation. But it is what it is. They're paying the price. If they want to eat $10 million and send him somewhere so the other team's paying $5 million a year for him, then do it. But if not, you have him on the bench. He could play decent defense, and it's the Yankees' problem. I was just saying before we went on the air, I was like, why don't we just offer DJ LeMahieu the qualifying offer after 2020 instead of giving him $90 million? I know they wanted to sign him. I know that they wanted to do right by him because he had been a machine in 2019 and 2020, but there was an option there to not go into. How old is DJ LeMahieu? He's turning
49.
They're 49. I think he's turning 34.
No,
he's heading into his. I'm sorry, he's turning 36.
He's 36
he
now.
Is 36.
He's turning 37. Yeah.
So he's going into his age 36 season. He was just worth negative 1.6 WAR. I don't know how because he won the Gold Glove in 2022. He accumulated a 3.6 WAR in 2022, largely because of his defense, because everything else on the offensive end cratered essentially. It was the least amount of doubles he's hit as a Yankee. It was the second least amount of home runs he's hit as a Yankee. It was the third least amount of RBIs he's hit as a Yankee. And if you look at 2021, 2023, and 2024, he is worth a grand total of 1.2 WAR. So, I mean, I'm not taking 2022 away from him, but that year was also marred by injury. He had missed 30-something or almost 40 games, and he started to be affected massively in the second half with offense, and it was costing the team dearly. And yes, there is value in defense for sure, but it's not $15 million worth, and that's just the reality of it. So it's the Yankees' fault for, again, stretching this deal out, and instead of just getting more creative and figuring out a way to either give him the qualifying offer for 1 year, see how it went, or just saying, you know what, here's a beefy 3-year deal. Let's see how it works out. If not, we're done with you. They extended it to 6. This is the problem. I don't think DJ LeMahieu is a problem in terms of locker room stuff or in terms of anything else. I think he's probably someone who is looked up to by the younger players and has asked for advice. He has a wealth of experience. He was once upon a time an MVP candidate. He's dealt with a lot over the last few years, but this is what the Yankees have to deal with. Like, this is it every year. There's 1 or 2 really bad contracts or 1 or 2 really bad personnel decisions that the Yankees either decide to stick with or they can't get off of. And this is what the reality is. And unless they get a little bit more creative or they're willing to trade people that they're uncomfortable trading with, then we got to deal with this for now. But I think most fans are happy with the offseason. And I don't know how you can be unhappy after you lost to Steve Cohen, outbidding the field by $50 million. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, people are unhappy regardless. So I understand. I think the team's in as good a spot as it could be after losing Juan Soto. Not delusional enough to say that they're happy they lost Juan Soto. They got, if the personnel people are happy with that, then they better use that long-term flexibility to their benefit next offseason and the offseason beyond that. If not, and they're just happy that they don't have to pay a generational superstar a lot of money, then that's embarrassing. But we'll see. I do think the comment saying there are moves to be made before spring training, I mean, there better be. They're looking at Tim Hill. They're looking at Andrew Chafin, 2 polar opposite relievers. One of them elite at inducing whiffs. One of them can't induce a whiff to save his life, but both are still very effective. I like both players. Get me a reliable lefty bullpen arm, whether it's the familiar name in Hill or someone else's face in Chafin. Get me an infielder, right? I'm not asking for much. DJ LeMahieu's going to be here. Just make it so he's not a starter. Make it so he's a bench presence. Make it so he can reclaim some of his value as a late inning replacement or a person who you need bat to ball skills. Great. Here's LeMahieu in a late inning role, grounding one up a drawn in infield or grounding a ball to the right side to move the winning run to third. That is value. He was an MVP in 2019 and 2020. He is no longer. That is fine. He can stick around.
Yeah.
He can't start. I'm fairly confident, 95% confident, that there will be an infield solution here by opening day who is not currently on the depth chart. I'm that confident. I don't even think we have to act as if we are worried about LeMahieu starting. But if proven wrong, you know what? I'll be the one to raise my hand when they report to spring training or when they jog out to the sidelines for opening day and get saluted by the crowd. I will be the one admitting I was wrong. But I think I'm that confident. I don't even think we have to worry about that.
Yeah. I hope. It is very much the Yankee way to bake in production from someone who has not produced. So we've seen it happen. It's happened with Aaron Hicks for years, which, it happened with Anthony Rizzo last year. It's a trend that exists. So it is concerning. But you're right. On December 30th, I'm not sitting here throwing my hands in the air. I just have a worry in the back of my mind that could be what they land on because the options are kind of scarce. And but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. If we're talking mid-February and there's no solutions, then I'm going to say, all right, man, like now I'm going to get mad. But yeah, to be stressing at the end of 2024 after all the moves they made and after they had honestly a good month of improving this team, it's a waste of time.
Yep. Don't wait till the trade deadline to get it done, though. You've been warned. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Yanks Go Yard podcast. We will be here when the new year arrives, discussing anything that happens this week. We hope you had a great 2024, or at least a serviceable one. We did make the World Series.
Yeah.
That was nice. Don't want to talk about the outcome of the World Series for good reason, but we were in there. We were battling it out. We were
inside the World Series.
We were fighting. We got inside of the World Series' carcass, and then we melted. we burned down. Yeah, one of the best teams in the American League as currently constructed. Obvious holes, needs. Let's get it done, and we will be the first. Rest assured, if they do not fill those gaps, if they show up to spring training undermanned, if there is dead weight on the 40-man roster or the 26-man roster, we will be the first ones to call it out. We know that you all know that, but we appreciate you sticking with us for now. Thank you for showing up to the stream. 2:00 Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for finding us on your favorite podcast platforms. We are there as soon as we are off YouTube. You can find the audio. Give us a review. If you haven't, subscribe. If you haven't, turn on your notifications on the channel. If we go live at an unorthodox time, we'd love if you would join us. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
I am at Tommy's_takes. We are at the official Yanks Go Yard account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Please head on over to yanksgoyard.com. All of the content you would ever imagine reading is there. We're going to keep you informed through 2024 and into the new year. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it very much. And one last sign off. Appreciate you guys all year. It was a long year for the Yankees. Got to the promised land, achieved a lot, but it ended up being a letdown. Appreciate you guys sticking with us, reading and listening throughout the way. We are very, very thankful for it. And cheers to 2025. Who knows what's going to happen? We keep thinking that there are better things to come each and every year. We're inching towards it kind of each year. I don't know. Who knows? We're going to try to remain optimistic. We're at least going to be here to keep you informed with all things Yankees, both on YouTube and at yanksgoyard.com. So appreciate all the support. We'll see you guys on the other side.
First year in a while, they didn't take a defined step back. I'll toot that horn. That wasn't so bad.
No.
But now a lot of work left to be done for 2025. And when that year arrives, we will be here and we will see you here. Take care.